Chris, what is our second main topic today?
Our second topic comes from Aran from the UK. Hi, team. Netflix's ad tier subscription service has now come into force, and for people on the lowest tier, they will not be able to watch things such as The Crown, House of Cards, and so on. Is this fair? What are your thoughts? We weren't told about this. Thanks.
All right, Aran, thanks a lot for saying that in. And well, first of all, to be fair to Netflix, they did tell us about this. I remember when we covered this story going back a couple months now, that when Netflix launched this ad-supported tier, they did say, they said right out in their statement that there are going to be some titles that do not carry over into the ad-supported tier, and that they'll work on that over the coming years to try to clear up all the licensing rights, so everything will be. But you're not wrong. So the new ad-supported tier of Netflix has launched, and this is a new era. I think it's $7. I think it's $6.99 or $5. I can't remember exactly what the number is, but it's something about half the price of what having regular Netflix will be. The trade-off, of course, is that you're going to get some ads. And as we found out, there's a lot of people who don't mind that if it means paying a cheaper price for it. However, with the launch, some people are noticing that maybe it was announced before and maybe they just didn't notice, but they're noticing now that there are a lot of limitations to being on the Netflix ad-supported cheaper tier. This comes to us from the folks at Variety who write the following. Among the shows not available currently with Netflix Basic with ads are Arrested Development, House of Cards, Peaky Blinders, New Girl, The Magicians, The Last Kingdom, I love that, The Sinner, Good Girls, The Good Place, and Friday Night Lights. Ooh, Rob, I know that one's going to sting you. Movies that are unavailable on Netflix are things like Skyfall, 28 Days, The Imitation Game, and The Bad Guys. Another limitation with the Netflix Basic ad plan is that subscribers do not have the ability to download titles for offline viewing like you do with a regular subscription. Users on the tier are limited to a single stream at a time, as with the Netflix Basic tier. According to Netflix, the ad-supported service will run approximately 4 to 5 minutes of ads per hour. Another limitation that's not listed here is the fact that if you are on the ad-supported tier for Netflix, you are limited to 720, not even full 1080 HD, and don't even think about 4K, but your stream is going to be limited to 720, which is a limitation in other areas of Netflix as well. So no downloading for offline viewing, only 720p maximum resolution, a number of titles that you can't get, single streaming things. So those things do start to add up. I will say this though, the 4 to 5 minutes per hour is a delightful surprise. Because if you watch like Hulu with ads, like in a 30-minute show, you're going to get 8 minutes in a half hour. They are doing like 4 to 5 minutes per full hour. That's 2 to 2.5 minutes per half hour. That's actually way better than most other ad-supported things. So I got to say, while there are also a lot of really almost draconian limitations on this ad-supported plan, the number of ads you got to sit through is surprisingly small. Anyway, Chris, you hear about this. Do you think this sounds fairly limiting? Which limitations stand out to you the most? And do you think this still makes for a good overall deal?
I honestly think this isn't that bad if you're not paying the higher tier. And this is where I'm at right now. And maybe I'm going to reevaluate this. But if I want to watch New Girl, I just, yell at Logan and we reenact stuff. I'm so glad I almost got you to spit take with that.
I was halfway into the sip of my soda.
For those of you who don't know, my husband is a real life Nick Miller. His photo ID
really
is just a various collage of Nick Miller moments.
He has a 2-digit credit score. It's the same, just like Nick.
Does he just crack and creak when he stands up?
He does. He does. When he had the whole bit on the show about where it was no one uses minutes anymore or more, Nick, Logan turned and looked at me and went, people don't use minutes on their cell phone plans anymore? So I'm good on that. But I mean, if you want to get those nicer things, then you can get the higher tier. Now, I understand that most people are paying for various streaming services and that all can, get on top of each other. And then you are paying more for cable ultimately, right? And that was the whole thing with cutting the cord, is we were saving money and we were only getting what we wanted. Well, now if you want those things, you got to pay a little bit more. I get why they're doing it.
Yeah, they bring up the question, is it fair? And I would, this is not going to be popular to say, it is fair. Like, hey, I want to pay less than that guy's paying. Okay, you can pay less but you will get a few less things. I mean, it should be pointed out here too, that with all those titles that we read and whatever, the vast majority of Netflix's catalog is available to, like, vast majority of the catalog is available to people on the ad-supported plan. The ones to me that stand out more limiting are the 720. The 720 to me is a rather big one. I don't care all that much about 4K.
It'll look blurry. If you have a 4K TV, it's going to look blurry.
I think the visual difference between 720 to 1080 is far greater than the visual difference between 1080 and 4K, even though 4K is technically 4 times the pixels. But that's the bigger one to me. Guys, we want to thank one of the sponsors of this episode, Wondery, and their official Lord of the Rings Rings of Power podcast. Your host, Felicia Day, and several special guests provide an inside look at the groundbreaking series and what it took to bring Middle-earth to life. Each of the episodes of the official podcast features exclusive interviews with the series showrunners, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, including the very first full breakdown of the incredible season finale. Felicia also goes behind the scenes with the cast and crew to bring you jaw-dropping stories and Easter eggs you won't want to miss. So watch The Rings of Power on Prime Video and listen to all 8 episodes of the official The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power podcast for free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app now. Anyway, Rob, which of these limitations are the ones that you think would sting you the most, but what do you think about it overall as a package?
Well, definitely the 720 now. But what I find really interesting about this, John, is that shows, it's one thing to have, like, Netflix's whole economic model for things like SAG is that they don't have advertising. So there's no residuals being paid out. And I'm really curious that if a show originated as a broadcast show like The Good Place, there's probably residuals built in there. And then when they picked it up for streaming, because there's no advertising, what residuals would kick in, I'm sure it has to deal with how people are paid out, how contracts are paid out. And if you have a streaming show that was only streaming things, that was buying out talent contracts, it's a one-time payment. When you suddenly make that ads, then it goes back to the broadcast model, and all the guilds are going to be like the DGA, the WGA, the SAG. They're going to be like, you guys have now changed what you were doing, and you've turned your streaming service back into the network model in terms of revenue. Well, what does that mean in terms of our constituency? Do you have to pay the DGA and SAG and the WGA that? And I'm sure that that's something they got to figure out, and I bet that plays in. Now, I don't know for a fact, but I bet it has something to do with the reason that there are things that are limited on their ad tier, I think.
Right, so licensing, they got to figure all that stuff out.
Yeah, and it's a big deal because suddenly you're going to have talent and the guilds and the agencies going, yo, we signed a deal for streaming only, and now you're getting ad revenue? We get a taste of that. And this is going to be a big deal moving forward.
One of the things that's going to protect them, though, is that all the streaming licensing deals that happen are very short term.
Yes.
Like you don't see like somebody picked up this show for 15 years. No, they usually pick it up for 1, 2, or 3 year blocks. So they will probably run their course and then set up a new normal.
Totally agree. That's exactly what's going to happen. I'm just curious to see how it's all going to play out because I'm fascinated about the business of it all.
What do you think then? The viewer who wrote in is asking, like, is it fair? Like, for me, I look at it and say, hey, if you want to pay half the price, then there's going to be certain things you got to give up, right? Yeah. 720p, can't download for offline single streaming. For you, it's the 720p. But when you look at the overall limitations that are coming with it, do you feel that it's still a fair deal, or do you think maybe they're taking a little bit too much away?
No, I think it's absolutely fair. I mean, I was just going through Netflix last night looking at things because I've been watching a lot of documentaries lately. That's I'm on a Netflix documentary Jag and watching the Great British Bake Show and their new Drink Masters show that's new. I mean, that's what I'm interested in, and they're not limiting that.
Yeah.
Now, if I would just concentrate, okay, for the next 6 months, I got a little bit more on the house payments or whatever. I'll go a little light on my. There's a lot to delve into that isn't limited.
Right. But you don't have 4 kids in the house, right?
Don't have 4 kids. So with the single
stream, like you couldn't have you and one of your kids watching Netflix also in one room and, Elizabeth in another room watching. Right. Like that's another limitation.
No, it's truly, but that's when you have to sit there and go, okay, well, what I think if I had 4 kids in the house and needed multiple streams, I would definitely pay the
Pay the
extra.
extra
Yeah.
$10.
I don't want to talk to them.
I don't want to talk to them.
And so really, I mean, what's interesting is Netflix is making this new paradigm available to people who want it. Now, what everybody wants is now you want to get something for less, something that you're already getting for less. If you're getting something for less, they're going to take away what you're already getting. So you have to expect that there's going to be limitations.
Yeah. I
Rob,
think the
I want my
720
money for nothing.
I want all
And chicks for free.
Yeah.
I say the 720 is really smart because that's something that will move the needle for someone like me. I don't mind ads. I'm a commercial actor, so I like to see my friends in them or see who got the spot in front of me or go, "Ooh, yay, I'm getting a residual this month," you know? I like to know how I can be part of the commercial landscape. But 720 makes me go, "Oh, that's going to look a little shitty on my TV."
Yeah.
I will say I hope that they add another pay tier where it's ad, but it's so this is ad basic. I hope they do ad standard, which at least then gets you 1080, and it's just maybe a dollar more than ad basic or something. Like they can have different tiers of ad, based
They could.
tiers, and that's what I hope they bring up. I mean, okay, like I just subscribe for like $3 a month, PBS documentary series, so I can watch all the Ken Burns like document. Those are all SD, so that's 480 tops.
Oof.
That stuff, honestly, it's okay because it's like. Just the.
Well, and you're paying $3 a month.
$3 a month, and it's an old they haven't.
That's all how they
They haven't
existed.
transferred it yet. But I'm not going to watch a new tentpole in 720.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about some of the limitations on the new Netflix ad-supported tier? Some of them are significant, but are they justified considering that you're paying about half the price what everybody else is? Whatever you guys think about it, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.